Hey everyone, have you ever scrolled through TikTok or watched a movie and heard a song that sounds, well, kinda old, but also amazing, and you see your parents or even your grandparents totally jamming out to it? We're gonna dive into the 1960s, a decade that absolutely flipped the script on music and honestly changed everything.
Yeah, for real. Think about it. Why is this music from like 60 years ago still everywhere? It's not just a fluke. There's a reason these songs have stuck around for so long. So what is the secret? What makes this music so special? Well, we're about to find out.
All right, first up, a whole new playlist. To understand the 60s, you've got to imagine that someone just took the world's entire music library and gave it a massive, system-wide update. It was a total game changer. So before the 60s, you had the 1950s. The music was cool, but it was kind of predictable. It was your parents' music, mostly just rock and roll, one song at a time on the radio. But then the 60s hit, and boom, everything exploded. Suddenly, you had rock, folk, soul, and pop all at once. Artists started getting super experimental, and instead of just one-off singles, they were creating entire albums with a whole story, kind of like binge watching a new season of a show instead of just catching one clip. It was finally your music. And right in the middle of all that, the British invasion happened. Seriously, it was like when a new video game drops that is so huge, suddenly everyone is playing it. Bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones came over from England and just completely took over the world. They totally changed what a band could be. So this new music was awesome to listen to, but it started to become something more. It wasn't just background noise anymore. It actually became the voice for millions of young people who felt like they weren't being heard. Rock music got a serious power-up. The guitars got way louder, the vocals got more powerful, and maybe most importantly, bands started writing their own songs about their lives, about being young, about rebelling, about figuring things out. It wasn't just music anymore. It was a whole culture, a lifestyle that even changed the way people dressed. And then you had protest songs. The best way to think about these is like a viral post that calls out a major problem, but with an acoustic guitar instead of a phone. Artists like Bob Dylan and Joan Baez were basically the original influencers, using their songs to talk about really important stuff happening in the world. And they were not messing around. They were singing about huge topics: the fight for civil rights, war, poverty and inequality, and the basic idea of freedom. These songs had a message, and people were listening.
Okay, but here's the thing. The 60s wasn't just about one style of music. It was this incredible explosion of creativity. So many different sounds were popping up all at the same time.
On one hand, you had psychedelic rock. I mean, this stuff was wild. It was literally designed to be a trip for your ears. Bands like the Grateful Dead were using all these crazy new effects on their guitars, writing lyrics about dreams and wild ideas, and going on these super long instrumental jams. It was all about pushing the limits of what a song could even be. And then on the complete other side of things, you had Motown. This record label was like a hit-making factory. It was as if they figured out the secret algorithm for creating a perfect, catchy song that would go viral. They mixed R&B with pop music to create these incredible tunes with amazing singers. And they didn't just find artists, they built superstars, like the legendary Supremes. All of this meant that the way people listened to music totally changed. It wasn't just about hearing a single song on the radio anymore. People got really into listening to entire albums from start to finish. It really is like the difference between seeing a funny clip online and getting completely hooked on a whole season of a show. Artists could now tell a much bigger, more complete story. Okay, so you've got all this groundbreaking new music, but how did it get to millions of people? And how did it go from being on a record to becoming a real-life movement? Well, there was a formula. First, you'd use all the cool new technology in the recording studio to make your song sound amazing. Step 2, you'd get that song played on the radio over and over. And Step 3, you'd perform it live on a TV show, beaming you straight into everybody's living room. You gotta remember, radio and TV were basically the internet and social media of the 60s. But just listening on the radio or watching on TV wasn't enough. The energy was just too big. All this new music and all these new ideas were building towards something massive. The ultimate in real life event. Over 400,000 people. Just try to picture that for a second. That's like the entire population of a big city, all showing up in one place for a weekend of music. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And that event was Woodstock. You can think of it as the original super festival. It was like Coachella, but honestly, way bigger and way wilder. For 3 straight days, all these different kinds of music, rock, folk, psychedelic, were all playing on the same stages. But it became way more than a concert. It was a symbol of peace, love, and freedom for a whole generation.
So after all that, we have to ask, why does it still matter? What is the real legacy of all this music from the 1960s?
Well, the 60s basically wrote the rulebook for modern music. Mixing different genres together, they started that. Pushing the limits with studio technology, they did it first. Writing lyrics that were super personal or even political, that became the new standard. And yeah, those giant music festivals that are all over your Instagram feed, the 60s created the blueprint for all of them. So look, if you take away just one thing, let it be this. The music of the 1960s wasn't just something to listen to. It gave an entire generation a voice and created the literal soundtrack for huge changes happening all across society. Which kind of makes you think, right? The 60s had their soundtrack. So what's yours going to be? What music, what artist, what song is going to be the one that defines your generation? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.